In every forest, there's a place the maps forget, where stories sink into the soil and wait to be found. Welcome to the Blood Red series. They say the forest is quiet, peaceful, a place where silence drapes over trees like morning mist. But those who've walked deep into the woods beneath the blood-red moon, they know better. It begins with the stillness, not calm, but frozen. The kind of stillness that presses against your ears, makes your breathing feel too loud. The wind doesn't blow, leaves don't rustle, animals disappear. Locals call it Hollowshade Grove, a cursed name, whispered in pubs and behind locked doors. They say, if you enter on the night of the red moon, you won't be alone, no matter how alone you feel. 3 days ago, a hunter named Elias went missing. They found his flashlight wedged in the roots of an ancient oak, still flickering. Muddy boot prints led in, none led out. And above the tree line, peering through twisted branches, that moon, unnaturally large, its red glow pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Some swear it has a face. We've gathered stories, accounts from those who entered the forest and came back, changed. They speak of whispers, of shapes moving just out of reach, of dreams that follow them long after they've returned home. Tonight we follow those trails. Tonight we listen to what the dark has to say. The story of the Hollowshade begins decades ago, long before anyone dared to name it. Elias wasn't the first. In 1974, a boy named Caleb disappeared during a family camping trip. His tent was found untouched. His shoes were by the fire pit, but Caleb was gone, vanished without a trace. His sister, now in her 50s, told us he would talk in his sleep about someone behind the trees, someone who only came when the moon turned red. She never camped again. We met a local farmer named Henrik. He lives just a few miles from the edge of Hollowshade. One night, years ago, he followed the howls of his missing dog into the woods. What he found wasn't his dog. He told us about eyes reflecting the moonlight like mirrors. He said something walked on 2 legs but moved like it had too many joints, like a spider trying to stand like a man. He never went back either. There's a rhythm to the stories, a pattern. Every 13 years, the red moon appears lower in the sky. The light gets darker, bloodier. Locals say it's not the moon that changes, it's the forest that reacts, as if it remembers. We found a ranger's report from 1999, never filed officially. Handwritten, torn at the edges. It ends with one sentence. The trees are whispering again. What is it about Hollowshade Grove that refuses to let go? Why does the path appear to some and not others? What lies just beyond the tree line, watching? We may never know. But tonight, the sky is red again, and the path is closer now. Welcome to the Blood Red series. There's a cabin hidden deep within Hollowshade Grove. No paths lead to it. It's not on any map. Locals say it appears only when it wants to be found. Made of blackened wood, scorched in places, the structure leans slightly, as if burdened by the weight of what it's seen. Inside, it's empty, at first glance, but if you stay long enough, the walls begin to speak. A journal was recovered there by a hiker in 2003, though no one could confirm how it ended up in their pack. The pages were soaked in what appeared to be water, or blood. The ink had bled, but some entries were still readable. One passage read, "The moon is closer tonight. It hums. I feel it in my teeth." Another, "They don't like fire, but they remember it." What fire? We found no records. But old yellowed photographs from nearby towns show smoke columns above the forest, burn marks in the canopy, long healed over. Whatever happened, it tried to erase itself, but the ground remembers. We spoke with a retired park ranger who asked not to be named. She said the soil in Hollow Shade grows cold, unnaturally cold. Each time the red moon rises, plants wilt, animals vanish, and then the dreams begin. She told us about waking up miles from her cabin, barefoot in the mud, unsure how she got there. In her hand, always the same thing, a small bone-carved token, a crescent moon with an eye in the center. She's collected 7 so far, and then there are the children. In 2011, 2 siblings wandered into the forest during a lunar eclipse. They were found 3 days later, silent, pale, holding hands. They wouldn't speak for weeks. When they finally did, they asked the same question. Did she follow us back? Their drawings covered the hospital walls, always the same image, a woman with no eyes standing beneath a bleeding moon. Some believe she's the guardian of Hollow Shade. Others think she's its prisoner. But one thing is certain. When the sky runs red, the veil thins, and something always walks through. They say memories fade, but here in Hollow Shade, memories cling to the bark like moss, alive, whispering, waiting. There's an old well deep in the grove, covered in roots, almost invisible unless you're standing right over it. Locals call it the listener. They say if you speak into it and wait long enough, it speaks back. A logger named Royce did just that. In 1987, during a storm, he took shelter near the well. Bored, maybe drunk, he shouted a joke into the darkness. What he heard in return was not an echo. It repeated his words, word for word, using his own voice. He never worked again. His family said he stopped sleeping. He'd sit awake, staring out the window, whispering, "It learned my name." We visited the site. The well is real. Cracked stone, tangled in vines. When we dropped a mic in, we only captured static. But it wasn't random, it pulsed. 4 beats, like a heartbeat. Some researchers believe Hollow Shade is a place where sound gets stuck. Like echoes trapped in time, replaying pieces of past lives. But others think it's something older, a presence that remembers. If you stand too close, you start to remember things that aren't yours. In 1962, a man named Abram moved to a cabin at the forest's edge. He was a recluse, a quiet man, building traps, carving strange totems out of bone. The townsfolk thought him strange, but harmless. That changed when the red moon came. For 3 nights, people claimed to see lights in the trees. Not fire, not flashlights. Something slower, like embers dancing in a pattern. On the 4th day, Abram was gone. The cabin was empty, except for the ceiling, scratched into the wood above the bed. She asked me to leave the door open. That's when reports started. Hikers seeing a man with no face standing just off the trail, a smell of burnt wood, a voice saying, "She's not done." No one stays in the cabin anymore, but it's still there, tilted, faded, the door always open. We left a camera overnight, just one. Battery fully charged. In the morning, the footage showed 9 hours of static, and at the very end, for less than a second, a pale hand closing the lens. There's a stretch of trail in Hollow Shade that no one remembers walking, no signs, no markings. But every map shows it. Thin, winding, like a vein. Locals call it the gray line. They say people have followed it without meaning to. One step, then another, and suddenly they're somewhere else. Not lost, just removed. A man named Ellis found it once. Or maybe it found him. He said he was walking home from work, a shortcut through the woods he'd taken dozens of times, but the trees looked wrong. Closer, thinner, like ribs. He walked for hours. His watch stopped ticking. Eventually, he reached a small clearing. Stone statues stood in a circle. Not carved, not placed, grown. Out of the ground like trees. Each statue had a name etched on it. None of them were his. Until he looked again and saw his own name at the base of the last one. He doesn't go outside anymore. Some believe Hollow Shade isn't haunted. It's alive. It grows. It learns. It remembers. And sometimes it answers. So if you ever hear a voice in the trees, soft, distant, saying your name, don't answer back. The forest is quiet again, but only for now. When the moon bleeds once more, you'll hear the whisper. Blood Red series will return.